Yeah, there you go. I'll tell him that next time.
They actually used that was pea soup is what they used, I think.
Oh, really?
I think
That's a
so.
that's a good substitute. I know when they use props for pills in movies, they use sweet tarts.
Really?
Yeah.
You know what's wild is so you know how like when you're doing like a cake, a decorative cake, there's like
Oh,
the clear gel lettering and stuff that you'll see go on it.
right.
So that's colored. But during the filming of the Alien franchise,
Mhm.
um, to give the aliens that slimy look, they were covered
Yeah.
in the gel, just clear gel,
Oh.
completely uncolored. But they threw that on to give them their slimy, glossy look.
That was the,
Is that the best signal?
that was the signal. Yeah.
I like it.
Yep. So we're
I like
live.
it.
Welcome.
Welcome. So yeah, we have a huh?
To Fantasy Island.
Yeah.
We are here.
Yeah, we are. So we have a special guest with us this week. He goes by Lucky Harps. He's a close friend of mine, and he is joining us for this week. And this week we are talking about gatekeeping, right? And it's not just gatekeeping in games, but it's also gatekeeping in real life. And I guess we'll go over some stuff like how to deal with that, and what kind of mindset you should be in when you're approaching a situation like that. But yeah, so I mean, So Lucky, why don't you tell a little bit about yourself?
Okay, so I mean, I've been gaming since I was a child, and currently I'm 39, and you know, obviously as time has gone on, we've seen games progress into what is now predominantly online multiplayer. And for me specifically, like I didn't really start to notice gatekeeping until I started getting into MMOs. Now I'm personally not a PvP player, uh, or I am somewhat, but for the most part, I'm PVE. And what I started noticing was as I was trying to seek out other people to play with, um, they were looking for very specific qualifications. You had to qualify to be a part of whether it be a raid group, whether it was a clan, a guild, or something along those lines.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I remember gear score in World of Warcraft was like the
Yep.
Yeah.
big like
Yeah.
yeah,
Your
and it
score was
was,
a thing.
yeah.
Yeah, that was the bare minimum. And I mean, as things turned into like first person shooters, you started seeing things like Elo show up,
Hmm.
or like what's your KD at? I mean, so I
Right.
played Destiny until a couple months back. But if you go through and try to find a group for Crucible, which is their PvP, you'll have people just saying, if you have less than such and such KD, go away. You're not
Right.
even welcome. Don't bother.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, once competitive FPS games appeared, that became a lot more normalized.
Right.
Like if you're at this elo, then you should be playing at this level. And for my experience, all started with, I guess you could say, World of Warcraft, but it didn't really kick in until Overwatch did.
So I mean,
Over
like we played together during World of Warcraft,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
Gears, like you said earlier, Gear Score was a big deal.
right. And for the most part, it didn't really matter because we've gone into. Remember when first Heroic Dungeons came out? You had to have a particular gear score in order to get in.
Hmm.
Well, I've taken friends in that were like 10, 15 points below the gear score,
Yep.
and they did perfectly fine.
Yep.
So it's like, where did this standard come from? Like, like who was making this shit up?
Now, does it
Yeah,
matter on what role you're filling though? Because
it's
if
a tank.
you had tanks that were that much lower and they were able to
Yeah,
like tank just fine.
yeah. We tanked just fine, and I was a healer. Because I remember I was playing my shaman at the time, and I was healing. He was tanking, and at first I was just like, "Oh well, people are saying you have to beat like a particular gear score in order to get in." So I don't know if you'd be able to do it. It wasn't my intention because I just didn't want him to go in and wipe over and over and over again, or it's going to be frustrating for him. But I was like, you know
Right.
what, fuck it. I don't think it's a big deal. And we went and we did the heroic dungeon, and guess what? It wasn't a big deal. we
I
went
mean,
in and it cleared it just fine.
I mean, aside from looking at hard metrics, whether it be KD or gear score or something like that, I
Yeah.
mean, I've seen a lot of things where it's age based.
Sure.
And I mean, I've seen both sides of it, where you'll see both good and bad.
Mhm.
So in Destiny, for example, try to run a raid. You have a set group of people, and there aren't hard roles like there are in traditional RPGs. There's no tank, healer, and then your DPS. It's a little bit more open, and so everybody can kind of do whatever they want. But they would, we had groups that were saying, "Oh well, no squeakers, stay out squeakers,"
Right.
and while I can understand the frustration with having uh, younger players hop in and then have 8 of their friends jump in and they're all talking at once, and you're really just looking for some quiet, calm dialogue to explain
Right.
what's going on, that's frustrating. But on
Yeah.
the other side of it, I know that I ran. So this is back during D1. We were running Vault of Glass, and I found a guy through LFG, and he was, I don't remember how old he was, but he said, "Hey guys, do you have room for two? Because my son plays with me, and he's young, but he's good." And so, there was a lot of moaning and groaning before we'd even invited these people in. And I just said, you know what, let's give him a shot. Let's humor the guy. He's playing with his son. I'm all about that. I think that's awesome when
Yeah.
parents are able to share a hobby and a pastime with their kids. And so we got this guy in, and the kid was super super excited, and you could tell just in his verbalizations. Um, but we got to a certain point where you needed somebody to be a key prominent figure within the raid. They needed to hold the relic. And this kid said, "Oh, let me do it. Let me do it. Let me do it." We're like, okay, we'll let him do it. And the kid killed it. He was a cleaner relic holder than most adults that I've played with.
Right.
And so, I've seen both sides of it where it's horribly wrong, and then other times where it's kind of, oh, wow, this person, not only are they capable, they're good. They're really good at it. And had we just said, okay, well, you're a little bit young for my taste, so you're not welcome, we never would have known that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on this. I guess it depends on their experience with playing with kids or playing with a certain age group. I personally prefer playing with people of my age group.
I was gonna say I'm gonna come off as like the crotchety old
Yeah.
mean bastard here, because yeah, I have a hard time playing with kids.
So I totally understand that. And the reason that I feel that way is less so that I'm willing to take a chance on skill level, but more so, admittedly, I play games as an escape or an unwind from my day.
Mm.
Right.
And so I don't want to have to filter myself. I don't want to mind my P's and Q's. I'll use profanity, some of the subject matter, because a lot of the times I play with people who are adults and who are familiar with me IRL, and so they know a little bit about my personal life. And I don't necessarily want to expose a younger person. It might not be appropriate. Not saying it's graphic, but it's not appropriate. And
Right.
so I'm not willing to share that either.
Right. Yeah, because I think it depends on the situation. I mean, if I remember, I used to raid with this one guild, and this guild was filled with people of all different ages. It was one of those really super laid back guilds, and we had quite a few parents in there who played with their kids,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of the guildies, more on the younger side, had no patience for those kids, and I always had to chill them out. I'm like, hey, listen, he's just starting. He's learning this raid. You know, chill out. You don't need to yell at him. You don't need to be so harsh on him. So I can understand how some people take the game seriously to a point where it's just like, we want to progress and we want to progress tonight. And we don't want anybody coming in the group who won't help us progress. And I can get that point of view, because I was in a raiding group where we always progressed every week. And we only had the people who've been raiding for a long time, who are good at their class, and so forth and so forth. I wasn't a guild leader or a class leader or anything, or an officer or anything at that time. I was just one of the peons who just went along for the ride.
Right.
So I didn't have to deal with that kind of responsibility, but there was a point in time where I did, and it was really difficult, because on one hand you want people who want to progress, and then on the other hand you have people who want to who want to play for fun.
Right.
And I think that's where a lot of the gatekeeping comes in. It's just like, you know, you have a guild that's particularly, you know, working professionals and above a certain age. And then you have another group that's just pure hardcore. You need to be dedicated. You need to be able to play this game this many hours a week, and you need to be this good, whatever the expectations are. And then you have, you know, people who just play casually. They don't really care, you know.
So here's a question for you, because
Sure.
I see where you're going.
Right.
So at what point does having standards become toxic gatekeeping?
So, to me, toxic gatekeeping is, so Overwatch is a better example, right? WoW is not too much of a good example because in WoW you're already integrated into community, right? Like you already asserted yourself into a group of players that you play with normally, and you know what those expectations are. They know what the expectations are. You know what the expectations are. You integrate yourself into that community, or they invite you into that community and you accept. You know what's expected of you, and you know what's expected of everybody else. Now, FPS games, on the other hand, are far different because
Now-
you get into. Sure, go ahead.
I was going to say, now is that due to matchmaking, or is it a different scenario? I'm unfamiliar because I don't really play Overwatch. So is that a situation where you have matchmaking, or you go in with like, you know, a set stack?
They do skill-based matchmaking. Most FPS games have skill-based matchmaking. So they will pair you up with people with the same skill level as you. So there's a lot of variables that they're going to look at, such as your KD, your survival time, you know, how long you're alive for. And a game of mine was Apex Legends. I played Apex Legends religiously for a very long time, and I loved that game. And I would go into matches with some friends, and because it's a battle royale, you never know what the outcome's going to be like. You drop in, you can get killed right away, right? And I have certain friends who are not strong in FPS games, and I play with them anyway because I am in the mindset where it's just like, I'm not expecting to win. I know it's not a positive mindset, but it's a more realistic one. So I'm not setting these high expectations for myself. Now toxic gatekeeping would be if I'm of the same skill level. If I know a friend who is not a strong FPS player and I invite them to my group and I make them feel like shit about it, and then I tell them I don't want to play with you anymore, I think that's toxic gatekeeping. I think that's just one of the forms, right? But when it comes to FPS games, it's so different because you don't know until you actually go into a game who you're going to be paired up with.
Right.
I think it
Same
also
thing with
varies game to game, like even within FPS games. Because I mean, the big game I play is Rainbow Six Siege, and we have lots of issues because between your ELO, MMR, whatever you want to call, like the rank, you know, rating system, you definitely will have. And recently they've implemented now where there's actually a cap, so like you can only play ranked with people who are within 1,000 points of you. So like I'm in a community, Iron Mountain, we play a lot of Siege. And we have a varying like array of skill levels, you know, and there's some people that are really great in the community that are awesome to play with, but they're at lower rank. So like they're having a hard time finding people to play with because it's like, hey, I'll play with you. It's like, oh, well, what's your ELO? Sorry. And then they're really nice about it. Like, it's not like, fuck you, scrub, you piece of shit.
Right.
But like they're left out. I mean, you know, and it's...
Right, but you know, to an extent, what I've noticed, whether it be in gaming or elsewhere, is that a lot of times, you know, if you are engaged in something where there is a community to it, if you play with people better than yourself or are engaged in that activity with somebody who is more skilled than you are, that pushes you.
Oh, 100%.
That makes you play better because you're playing against a more difficult opponent.
Mm-hmm.
Step it up. You have no choice but to be better.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's definitely one thing. Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with that. And I mean, it's just competitive games just create this gatekeeping mentality, you know, because I've gone into Overwatch matches or any FPS matches where there is skill-based matchmaking, and it's just loss, defeat after defeat after defeat after defeat. And after a while, your morale just starts to crumble, you know. And it's just when you play with other friends, it's like you have a much different experience. That because they put in skill-based matchmaking, you're paired up with people of your skill level, but you're also grouped up with people who like aren't of your skill level, and so they kind of have to. So it kind of like evens out. So it's
Right.
kind of like a bunch of average players on the other team, and then you have. This sounds really bad, but then you have some terrible players on your team, and then you have yourself, right? And so it just kind of evens it out. But in Overwatch, it doesn't work that way because it's a team-based game. So depending on what kind of skill they lack, if they lack a lot of teamwork skills, then it makes it very difficult for you to win games in a game like Overwatch. But you look at when you look at Counter-Strike Go and Valorant, where one person can carry the entire game, or in League of Legends, where one person can carry the entire game, it's a little bit different. So that's why I kind of singled out FPS, because FPS is super mechanical, so it's a lot more sensitive. Like you have the hand-eye coordination and the teamwork logic there, or you just kind of don't.
So I almost wonder if it, earlier you had touched on, you played with a group of people that are constantly trying to progress, right?
Right.
And I mean, I get that. I'm a very objective-driven player. While it might not be through PvP, I'm constantly seeking to accomplish something. So the thing is, though, for what I've noticed, specifically with PvP, is that the more serious that I get, the worse that I play. And it's when I just kind of throw my hands up and say, you know what, I'm just going to hang out with these people. I'm going to enjoy myself. And that's all there is. We end up steamrolling through everything.
I have the same experience when I play ranked in Siege. Is if I go into it too much like, this game means everything. I'm one win from gold 1. I got to win this. I'm going to fucking just bomb. But if I go in just like, all right, I'm going to stomp some people and have fun. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, I get that. What MMO are you playing now?
Currently, I'm playing Final Fantasy XIV. I stepped away from, as I said, I played Destiny since D1. First, I wasn't a beta player. I'm not that guy. But I played within the first week, and I played all the way up until one of their more recent events. It was Guardian Games. Kind of got me turned off to the franchise a bit, and so my roots are in MMOs. I played the original Guild Wars back when that had come out. That was my first dip in the pool as far as MMOs are concerned. And then from there, I went over to WoW. I played WoW for many years. And then I did beta and played Guild Wars 2 for a while. And man.
Lucky got me into MMOs, by the way.
Did I?
Nice.
Yeah, you introduced Guild Wars to me.
No shit.
Yeah, and for Guild Wars was the very first MMO I've ever played. And then you showed me WoW. Like I think it was maybe a couple days later, you showed me World of Warcraft. And then you were in Orgrimmar and you went to the auction house. And I remember you saying, "Oh, look at that octopus staff. That's a badass looking staff." I was like, "Yeah, that is a badass looking staff." And then like a couple weeks later, I go and I pick up WoW and I pick up Burning Crusade. I pick up the battle chests.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time I played WoW, and when I first went to, I was Alliance, by the way, and I went to Stormwind. I was like, I was in awe. I know.
That's why we didn't play together
the right
so
side.
much.
Yeah, I know. Then I went to the right side later. And then
Horde,
yeah,
maybe?
man. Yeah. Yep. I was Horde from then on out. But yeah, that world just soaked me in. But yeah, I experienced gatekeeping in World of Warcraft, but not to the extent because I was so immersed in the game that I wanted the best shit. And so I grind and I grind and I grind and I grind until I did get the best shit,
Yeah, I played enough WoW that gatekeeping wasn't an issue for me.
Yeah.
So I was kind of an anomaly. I got really, really lucky because a person that I knew, it was kind of the same situation that happened with you and I. I knew somebody that already played. Right. And she was in a really close-knit guild and had said, "Oh, come join us, come check it out." And I was like, "Oh, sure. Yeah, the first hit's free. I'm all about that." And so I jumped in and they were highly competitive and took raiding very, very seriously. It was one of those, we raid 3 nights a week, and if you are not there 10 minutes before the call time, you're not going, and we have backup. And so a lot of clans required you to earn your keep. I knew somebody and got slid right into it. So I didn't have to experience it so much with WoW. But I had totally run into it. I ran into it in Destiny. when I transferred from PS3 to PS4, because everybody who I'd played with was PS3, and when I came over to PS4, I knew nobody, and it was so hard to get into a group of people that played consistently, because everybody already said, "Oh, well, you're new."
Yeah.
We just looked you up. You haven't been playing that long. I was like, no, I'm new to PlayStation 4,
Right.
but I've been playing since launch. So,
right.
And it took me. I ended up not having a clan until I founded one with people that I met on LFG.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I definitely had similar experiences with Siege, because when I first started playing, so I've been playing Siege for like 2.5 years or 3 years. When I first started, it was on PS4, and then I accidentally broke the PlayStation. It was a long story. Then I switched to Xbox. Same situation there. It's like, oh, you're a dumb noob. It's like, no, man, I've been playing for a year already. Like, I'm not a noob. And then now I switched to PC, and the same experience. I'm lucky enough that the community I'm a part of are like really friendly to new people, and but like, I'm wondering if a lot of this gatekeeping comes down to people placing their value and worth on their stats.
Right.
So go ahead.
Sorry. Oh no. Yeah. I mean, that was the statement. I'm wondering if people place their value and worth. Like I know in Siege, it's on your rank. Not as much kill-death ratio, because in Siege, depending on what role you play, you may not be a fragger and you may not get a lot of kills.
Right.
So in Destiny, it was very much, it's not rank, but you'll have a comp score, because they have regular matches, which you'll gain a score from, but win or lose, that goes up. But if you start playing comp, then a win will gain you points, a loss will take them away. And so people get really, really defensive over the amount of time that they've sunk into it, getting their score up. So if you're bringing them down, they don't want that, and I understand that.
Right.
But I think one of the things is that while I recognize some people take it seriously, it's important to remember that or for me personally, this is my leisure time.
Right.
This is what I'm doing for fun, and
Right.
I'm not trying to get twisted up about having a couple of bad matches, or hey, it's a raid, we wiped, it happens.
Yeah. So what bothers you more? What bothers you more? Is it the fact that they have expectations, or how they approach it? How they approach you about it?
I think my issue tends to be how they approach it.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Because I don't think there's anything wrong with having expectations, whether that be in gaming or real life. You apply for a job, and they say, "Hey, man, this is what we expect." There's nothing wrong with that. You find expectations everywhere. You go out to a restaurant, you order a meal, you have expectations, but it's how you present those expectations that are going to make or break that relationship, whether it be a long-term or a short-term one.
Yeah, I agree.
No, I mean, definitely, yeah, and it's almost like a credential almost, because like you don't get upset when you apply for a job and knowing you don't have the credentials for that job. Like if I go try to be attending physician at a hospital, I don't have my MD. I'm not gonna be upset when they're like, dude, like you're not qualified for this.
I mean, but that's a very specific field. You can't have the bad apples and the surgeons.
Yeah.
True. I mean, maybe that analogy is not foolproof there, or but the idea of if I'm trying to go play with like a rank stack of all diamonds and I'm like low silver, like I can't really expect them to be like, oh yeah, come on in, man. I mean,
yeah, you start playing ranked or comp matches, and there are expectations. And, it might be a situation where rather than just say, sorry, you're trash, go away. Yeah. Rather than approach it like that, you could say, hey, dude, we're going to start playing some comp matches here. We're not willing to roll the dice right now, but if we're going to practice at a later time, why don't you shoot me a friend request and you can skirmish with us? Let's get a feel for you. Maybe your score isn't up to par, but maybe you got potential that we don't know about. And that's something I think that goes a long ways. Like that's how I think I've landed 80% of my jobs as an adult. Is I've been fortunate enough to have people say, hey, you know what? You're not necessarily qualified, but we're confident you've got potential. And we're willing to give you that opportunity to prove your potential. Mind you, it might be a probationary period, but it's the same thing within gaming. Give somebody the opportunity to prove their value and show you what they bring to the table before you just say, oh, get out of here. You're done.
And I don't know about like all the other games, but like in Siege, for instance, I don't think your rank necessarily is always indicative of one's skill, because it's a 5v5 game. For anyone who hasn't played it, it's team based. You could be the baddest motherfucker on the block, but if the rest of your teammates literally just like kill each other and stand in a corner, you're gonna lose and you're gonna have a low rank, right? So like I feel like there's a certain level where it's like we put too much value in these stats and like,
Well, I mean, a big problem within the Destiny community is that stats don't mean anything because there's a serious cheating problem that goes on.
About that.
Right. No. And so, when you've got people that are, manipulating connections or just running bots or something, you can't even go off of their scores. So, your standards go out the window because you go, oh, this guy's, look at his score, get him in here. And then you're like, oh my God, you're absolute garbage. Why? Why did we do that? And everybody suffers as a result because you went off of just how good they look on paper.
Sure. So we already know, like, we can't control what other people say or do, right? We can't control the behavior of others. So what's something that we can do for ourselves to kind of maintain that sanity, to not get all pissed off when someone comes to us and be like, hey, you're trash, so you can't play with us, right? Or you're trash, you can't do whatever it is that we're doing. What's something that we can tell ourselves?
So for me personally, I don't get hung up on running into that sort of thing. I mean, maybe you can call it thick skin, maybe you can call it arrogance, but I just don't, if they're willing to be that rude to me up front, I don't think that I necessarily want to interact with them for any sort of length of time. For me, when I run into situations where I could possibly be the person who is gatekeeping, you got to keep it humble.
Yeah.
I've got to remember that, nobody started amazing. Right. Everybody had to learn and make their way. And so I would rather not hinder somebody's progression just because I'm going to be an elitist dick that day.
Sure.
And so, keep it humble. Remember that everybody starts somewhere, and you can nurture somebody to be better, or you could discourage them away from something that they're doing just to enjoy themselves, which is really why I would assume most people are playing video games, is because they enjoy it.
That's
in a perfect world, right?
Yeah. I mean,
in a
really,
perfect world,
only like the top like 0.5% of people actually make a living playing video games. The vast majority of us are doing it for entertainment or relaxation or whatever. Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing for me that's like really, one, made me enjoy playing Siege infinitely more, and two, has cut down on those sort of issues, is finding a gaming community. And I'm not just trying to only plug Iron Mountain. If you play Siege, Iron Mountain's the way to go. But like honestly though, like if you that's and you kind of lucky, you kind of spoke to that too with like the guilds that you found and different things. Like I think that's the best way to really avoid the heartache and the bullshit, especially if someone telling you you're a trash, go kill yourself. If you take that to heart, the best way to avoid all those issues is, I think, finding a gaming community.
I mean, being a creature of habit, and maybe I'm tipping the hat towards crotchety old man.
Well, we're all boomers here, so it's okay. We're all over 30.
I don't have patience for dealing with that kind of stuff at this point in my life. When I get on to play, I want to play with people who I enjoy the company of. And so typically at this point, probably 95% of the time that I'm playing anything, I'm playing with people that I have experience with. Whether it's a serious game or we're just going for jollies, I'm playing with people who I know and who, even if we're failing miserably, we can laugh at ourselves and not take it too seriously.
Right. So you also mentioned that you experienced gatekeeping IRL.
So I am currently a warehouse manager for a company that offers a data center support service. And being that this company that I work for has a specific skill set that they are looking for, they know that the majority of the time that is found through Navy nukes. It's a rigorous training program, so that there's a bare minimum. There's a bar for what you should know. And while we're trying to hire, this is the standard that they put out. And it's unfortunate, and it bothers me, especially being a part of the interview process, because that's not my personal experience, and that's part of that is my fault for bringing my personal feelings into a business environment. But that's not how my employment history goes. I'm not former military.
Right.
And I've worked very hard for many, many years to get where I'm at. But that is a direct result of somebody taking a chance on me and giving me the opportunity to prove my value and what I can bring to the table. So when I see the company that I work for saying, "Oh, you're not a former Navy nuke," no, we're gonna pass. Thanks though. Even though you've got amazing credentials, your resume is impeccable, we're not interested.
Right.
Especially because I somehow slid under radar. I'm no more valuable than the next guy. And if I can prove myself, why can't somebody else?
Right. In a perfect world, though, right?
In a perfect world, but it's be the change you wish to see.
Right.
And for me personally, it is a pay it forward type situation. Someone gave me opportunity. I in turn want to give opportunity to somebody else who otherwise might not see it.
Right. Has any of this gatekeeping stuff affected your mental health at all?
So I know for me, like in my field, like there's a lot of gatekeeping, and a lot of it is like you go to college, right? So in mental health, you go to college, you get a degree, you're like, oh, I can work in the field, right? The most entry-level job requires a 4-year degree and a year experience. So you're like, how the hell am I supposed to get that year experience to even get in the door? And these are like the most... So that my first job was dishwashing, but my first in-the-field job was literally a job that only required a high school diploma, but happened to be in the mental health field. Yeah.
So was that before college happened?
No, this is after I graduated college.
Okay.
So I had my 4-year degree, and then I was trying to get jobs that required 4-year degrees, but they also required 1 to 2 years experience to even get those. Yeah.
That's something that you're seeing kind of across the board right now. Companies are starting to ramp back up and want to replenish everybody who they may have laid off or furloughed during the pandemic. And what you're seeing are these unreasonable expectations where they want 10 years of experience and a 4-year degree, and that's fine. I understand having expectations, but the thing is that they want to pay as though you're fresh out of college.
Right.
When you start getting 10 years of experience, that's going to cost you. But it's a situation where employers are trying to have their cake and eat it too. And so, it's an impossibility. Like you said, we want 4 years and a year of experience, even though there's no way for you to get that year of experience.
Right.
Yeah. And it was hard on my mental health. Like right when I had that first job, and the job was also extremely grueling and rough. So I was a counselor at a mental health facility, and this mental health facility was for very, very at-risk, most of them were court-ordered adolescent boys. So, like, there was daily fights you were breaking up. Like, it was rough. And I would work 40 hours in 3 days. So I would do an 8-hour and 2 16-hour shifts back-to-back. And there was day after day of just calling my dad, like, why the fuck did I go to college? Like, what's the point of this,
Right.
And the mantra we came up with was, it's a means to an end. I had to keep reminding myself, like, I'm doing this for 1 year, and then I'm getting the hell out of here. And this is all, and that job, I learned so much from it. I feel like it helped me build patience, and it's got me to where I am. Which is a half unemployed, working from home therapist, but it got me.
But you're a very good therapist. You're a very good therapist.
So what's interesting is that it really depends on what field you're looking at, because so I've got friends who are in the culinary industry, or I should say they're professional cooks or chefs.
Yeah.
And what they're seeing is that there is kind of a shift in the mentality where instead of saying, oh, I graduated from Johnson Wales, you'll have, employers that are saying, well, that's fine, but you've never worked in an actual kitchen. You've never experienced the dinner rush of a holiday. And so they would much rather hire on the guy that's been, a fry cook for 8 years, but who can hold it down. And so you're seeing a shift away from that. But then the thing is like, you want all this experience, but in order to get that experience, someone still has to give you the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And so then again, you sweet gatekeeping.
Yeah, I do feel like the industry really matters a lot, because in IT is completely different. So I worked in IT for 12 years, and it's like they want to fill the positions. They just want to fill them and fill them and fill them. Like they'll even have you come in for an interview when maybe half your skills don't even match what they're looking for, because they can train it. They can teach you those things. So it's crazy to hear how some industries are so different. And when I ran the residential treatment center, I had a very specific type of person in mind. I don't really care about the qualifications. I care about your personality.
But
I care about your patience level.
You cared about the minimum, though.
Right. I cared about the minimum.
Because there's like accreditations we had to maintain.
Right.
But yeah.
Right.
So that's actually a really interesting point. And I'm a firm believer in that, and that's really kind of how I approach hiring processes. And that is that I want to know more about your personality. I want to know about your work ethic. And so previously, before my current position where I'm at, I ran a manufacturing plant blending chemicals for probably close to 11 years. And at one point we were hiring, and we sent out a couple of invitations. Hey, come on in. We want to talk to you. And people would come in for an interview. And, they'd call me ahead of time and say, oh, what do I need for my interview? And, bring your resume, but bring clothes you're not afraid to work in, physical work. And they'd come in, and I'd invite them in, sit down, have a cup of coffee with me. And we sit down, and I'm a smoker. So I'd say, hey, I don't know if you smoke, but I smoke. So I'm going to have a cup of coffee, and I'm going to smoke my cigarette like I do every morning. And I'm going to look your resume over. But I'll be honest, I don't really care what's on here. I want you to work with me for the day. And we'll see if we have a good rapport. Do we get along? Is this something you're even really interested in? Because there's nothing worse than signing on for something and realizing that it is just not what you're into.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's typically how I would prefer to be able to do it. But unfortunately, that's not a reality in most jobs. You can't give somebody a trial run. You say, hey, I'm paying you for your time, but for the next 7.5 hours, you're mine.
Yeah. That's never been my interview experience with any job.
It's completely unordinary.
Yeah. I'd say so.
But yeah, like the IT field's starting to wisen up a little bit, because from my experience, I've interviewed with a couple of places where they want to do a skills assessment, which I completely understand. And for me, it's never a problem, because I was able to pass them a flying color, because I don't bullshit. I'm usually honest with them.
Right.
When I go in an interview and there's a certain skill set that they don't have, it's like, hey, listen, man, I just want to let you know right off the bat, I don't really have much experience in this stuff. And I'll even tell them over the phone. They're like, yeah, come in anyway. I'm like, okay. But apparently a lot of people are bullshitting their skill sets. They're bullshitting their way into getting an IT job because they're so easy to fill.
That's something that has irked me for a long time, is that, when I approach a person for potentially employing them, just be a straight shooter. If you don't know, that's fine. Tell me you don't know. I would rather know that you don't know and be willing to, teach you or find you the resources to learn, rather than to have us get to a situation where you've been on for 3 months and the crunch comes and I need you to do something, and that's part of a skill set that you told me you had, and all of a sudden, oh well, I'm rusty. I may have fluffed my resume a little bit there, and it's like, come on, man! If you had just told me, we could have resolved this. But now, you screwed us both.
Yeah.
I watched a couple of YouTube videos. I think I have the hang of it. Yeah, like, and you see that in mental health also. Like we had, well, they don't watch this. It doesn't matter. We had a therapist at one point that was not qualified to do what she thought she was qualified to do. Like she was not. She was not trained in it. She was not certified in it. She was not qualified in it.
In our company?
Mm-hmm.
I have to ask.
Yeah.
How did this person get in the door?
So she worked her way up. Like she was qualified to be a therapist, but the type of treatment that she was doing, she was not trained in. So she was claiming to be certified in like to do trauma therapy, and there's a very rigorous like courses you have to take, supervision you have to do.
Wait, do I know this person?
Yeah, you do. It was towards the end. It was one of the replacements.
Oh, I don't think I was there anymore.
You know who this person is, though.
Oh, I do.
Sassy morning counselor that was in residency. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It rings a bell.
She kept saying she was doing trauma therapy, and I kept like being like, "You're not doing trauma therapy. You're not certified for this. Like, whatever you're doing, you may be doing something with them, but it's not."
Maybe she was saying that she caused trauma.
There you go. She did actually.
Not wrong.
She did actually.
That's
yeah.
not wrong. You're not wrong there.
Oh god. But yeah, like, and again, it's one of those things on the resume. Like, you can put it down, doesn't mean you can do it. Yeah.
Right. But as I was saying, I would much prefer somebody tell me flat out, I don't know.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it really comes down to the personality type. Are you willing to put in the time and effort to overcome the fact that you might not have the full credentials? If you're willing to do that, then it almost can skirt you around the gatekeeping aspect of it. Right. Like if you can be an honest, straight shooter, but I feel like more often than not, we see at least with employment that if you don't have these very specific requirements, which very well could be completely unreasonable and unattainable, if you don't have those, we're not even gonna return your call.
I mean, doesn't that stress people out? Like, how can you? I mean, how can you go? Yeah, I know this. I have experience in this, and when the time actually comes and you truly don't, I mean, doesn't that? I mean, how is that good for your head?
I don't know if I'm understanding the question. So you're saying
the amount of stress that it'll cause when you know you can't perform. Doesn't that bring you like tons of anxiety and stress? Like it's just like, okay, so you got the job now, right? You applied for a certain position. You know that you're not qualified to do several of these key items.
So, I mean, let me ask: are you saying that they bullshitted their way in, or they've been a straight shooter and just said, "Hey, I'm in this position."
Their way in.
Oh,
I would think so.
Their way in. But it's just shocking how many people do it. It's like when you bullshit your way into a job like that, or you bullshit your way into anything when it's time. When it's time to perform and it's time to do these things. I mean, aren't you just kind of like shooting your own foot?
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine so.
I've never done that, but I would think so. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's difficult for me to identify with that because I understand. I mean, I've heard a lot of people be like, "Oh, just fake it till you make it." It's like, or fake it till they fire you.
Yeah, because I get nervous when I'm asked to do something that's kind of out of my realm, and they know that I haven't done certain things before, and it's like it stresses me out because it's just like, well, I want to be able to do this for them, right? So I can't even imagine when you truly they don't know that you don't know this stuff, and you told them that you do, and when the time comes, it's just like, what do you do now?
I think there's some benefits of fake it till you make it, though, depending on in some things. On some things, I think there is. Like I will say, like there are a lot of therapy. Like,
so are you hiring?
Am I hiring? No. But what I'm saying is a lot of the stuff that comes to you you're never taught in school how the fuck to treat certain, like, a lot of these things.
Right.
Like, in school, you're taught a lot of, like, theories and, like, things like that. And a lot of times you learn by, like, I mean, it sucks because it's their life, but you learn, you know, by doing.
But you do it out of necessity, though. You do it out of necessity.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't bull my shit my way into the job, but once I was there, I definitely came across some stuff. I was like, well, fuck, you're the first time I've ever seen this before.
Right. But you're qualified for that job, though. So overall, after that kid walks out of your office, you're able to go and you're able to start to brainstorm because you're qualified for that job.
Well, like, and you consult with like peers and
exactly.
You
know what to do. You know exactly what direction that you need to go. And I'm talking about people who are claiming to be a developer and they don't know shit about developing.
So, I mean, now this isn't the route that I take. I mean, I have no problem telling somebody, I don't know. But if I know it is a situation where something is expected of me and I know that it is out of my skill set, I will be YouTube learning and Googling so aggressively until I can not do it amazingly, but I might be able to limp through it enough that I can learn during the process. Like, personally, I'm a very hands-on learner, so I'm going to have to fumble a little bit, but I'll get through it. Like, and sheer will, I'll get there.
And that's okay, because I mean, you've let your employer know, or you let your colleagues know. It's like, hey, I'm not strong in this, you know. And but it's just like, give me some time, and I'll do what I can. I'll try to learn this stuff. And the reason I bring this up, like, it's not the reason I think it's not good for mental health, because I always worked, every place that I've worked at, there's always that one person.
Yeah,
I swear, there's always that one fucking person. And right now, it's my goddamn supervisor. Now, bless her heart, I know she knows a little bit about marketing, but she knows fuck all else. To be in charge of a marketing department, she is not qualified for something like that, and it's very, very apparent.
Oh, I mean,
it's like, how can you ride the coattails of the person who was there before and convince everyone and tell everyone that you're qualified for that job when you're clearly not?
So I haven't been in the position where I've bullshitted my way in. But I've absolutely, a couple times over now, been in a position where I am not qualified to be there. And you know, you're talking about the mental health aspect of it. That is an immense amount of stress. Knowing that somebody is taking the chance on me, and I am not qualified. But for me, that becomes a level of stress because, one, I don't want to let them down.
Right.
After they were kind enough to offer me an opportunity. But two, it's my pride. I don't want to fall on my face and just go, hey, you know what?
Sure.
I didn't bother trying to learn this. I don't know. I didn't meet the deadline. The shipment didn't go. You know, I didn't produce this, that, or the other. That's like absolute failure. Failure due to lack of trying is terrifying to me. Failure because you tried your best and it just, you know, you weren't in the part of the process where you learned. That's a little different, you know.
I don't think you fail until you actually give up, though.
Well,
because then you just still be trying. You know, like you won't really fail until you actually stop trying. Until you're like, oh fuck it, I don't want to do this anymore. That's when you can actually label it as like, you know, this didn't work out for me. I failed at doing this. But if you're constantly like trying and you're constantly pushing yourself to learn whatever material that it is that you want to learn, but what I'm trying to say is, like, of course you're going to be at a point in your career where you're going to encounter something that you don't know how to do.
Sure.
Right. But I'm just saying, when you go and you apply for a job, just be honest, so they can show you that equal amount of patience, right? If they know you don't know how to do this, they'll at least give you the resources to learn it.
You know, I would almost wonder if the reason we don't see more honesty during the interview process is a result of us as a culture, more or less shaming people into not saying, I don't know. Like, we've made I don't know somehow shameful.
It's okay to not know. It is shameful. I mean, it's a shame that people do that. It's a shame that our culture has come down to that. And it's just like I don't want to. I don't think anybody in this world is stupid, and I know that's very like I know that's very.
I think most people are fucking idiots, to be honest with you. But that's just me though. But
I don't want to label someone as stupid. I don't believe in that. I will label someone lazy before I label them as stupid because
I've got a great example of that.
Okay, go ahead.
No, you're absolutely right in the fact that people won't necessarily be stupid. They may have a different skill set, but a great example of somebody that is definitely not stupid. So I spoke earlier about the company I work for and them having a desire to hire on only former Navy nukes, right? So we had somebody who met all of their credentials on paper, awesome. But like you talked about lazy, it was pulling teeth to get any kind of work out of a person. And yeah. So it's that is very much a thing where just because you're qualified doesn't mean you're a good candidate because you might be just lazy as shit.
Right. And if someone doesn't understand some of the most basic shit, if someone doesn't understand the most common sense type of thing, it's like, are you too lazy to learn it? Because I don't think you're stupid. I don't think you're unable to comprehend it. I just think you're too lazy to bother to learn it.
Right.
I don't think you're taking the time. I think you're too lazy to do critical thinking and try to understand what I'm actually trying to tell you.
So is that laziness or is that arrogance? Because they don't think it's like I don't need to learn that. That's just below me. Or is it just kind of I just don't give a shit?
Yeah, it could be. They're just not interested in it, But if you were to put me in your environment, what you do for a living, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Would you label me stupid?
Ignorant.
No. Ignorant perhaps, but that's just due to lack of experience.
Yeah, exactly.
I wouldn't pass judgment on you until I saw, if you don't know, that's okay. But if I see you making no effort, if you're not asking the questions that you need to, or showing the initiative to learn that, then I'll think something, but I won't think you're stupid. I'll just think you're lazy.
So can't this I don't want to say rule, but can't this logic apply to like many other things?
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of looping back to what I was saying about, playing with a child and his father is that, doesn't have the credentials. He's not old enough to play in the group of people that I would typically play with. But
right.
You know what? I'm not saying he doesn't know how to do it, but I need to see a little something. And because, you paid it forward a little bit and gave this kid the opportunity, I got blown away. I saw some kid run the relic better than I've ever seen it run before.
Right.
And we've seen that in the community that I play with, because I typically have that hard, fast rule of like, if you're below 17, I don't really want to play with you.
So that's why you've been quiet, because you are the gatekeeper.
I am at times, not about stats though, but I am about age. Honestly, I really am.
I've been a gatekeeper too. I'm not gonna lie. I've done some gatekeeping too, and the way I approach games are much different now. Right, like when I go into any kind of game that I know is going to be competitive, I don't come in with a competitive spirit, and I know it kind of defeats the whole purpose of it. Like when you go into a game like Overwatch, you want to win, right? You want to see that victory, that victory notification pop up, or that victory sign pop up, and you want to be the number one when it comes to battle royale. And it's just like until I'm actually mentally ready to go play a competitive game like this with friends who aren't strong in this game, I'm not going to have high expectations, so I need to be in the right mindset to do it. Because to make things a lot easier, I just play MMOs where I can just shoot the shit with my friends and not take anything seriously. Where you can go into a scalable dungeon where no one gives a fuck.
That's why I love Guild Wars 2 so much. That is my like chill out game where it's like it doesn't matter. Like I'm level cap. I'll still go into a low level, to play with people because it's like it doesn't matter and.
That's all
like,
you.
Who gives a fuck? At that point, it's just like I'll play with whomever, wherever.
But what I was saying about the kid though was that like almost viewing age as a stat. So I was judging hard on these other kids, right? Then I played with this one guy. awesome dude, much better than I am at the game. I found out he's 14, and I was like, holy shit! Like I didn't even know because he was mature, he was respectful.
Right.
Like so, you just can't always judge people by stats, whether it's their age or their kill death or whatever. I mean, you can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna lie, I've gone into certain games where I played with some of my, not so strong shooter friends, and they've saved my ass a couple times. You know what I mean? But then again, it's like I shouldn't use that as an excuse to not play with them or to play with them. I should be in the mindset where it's just like, hey, I haven't talked to these guys in a long time. They're my friends, and I want to play some games with them, and they like this game, so I'm going to play with them. And whether we win or lose, as long as we have a good time doing it, right? I think that's a good mindset to get in whenever you play any kind of game.
Yeah, the bottom line is, are you having a good time?
Right, because that's what games are for, is to have fun, is to relax, to wind down. And, I know a 14-year-old kid is not going to have an 8-hour shift at work and then come home and unwind in the video game. Sometimes that's all they really do. Especially during summer break, that's all they do is play video games and hang out with friends and stuff like that.
And oddly enough, you talk about gaming being something you're doing for pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
Some of my best memories over decades and decades of playing is people playing like absolute garbage. Just having it's and I don't mean that as in you're laughing and having a good time at somebody else's expense, but you are, as a group, you are just enjoying each other's company and are able to objectively take a step back. I'm sure that I've had that experience where I'm that guy playing like trash and people are just looking back like, really? You stood in the pool. You stood in the fire. What? Why? Why would you do that? So I know that I've been that person. And if I'm still able to have a good time and look back and go, man, I screwed the pooch on that one. That's terrible.
Right.
But that's that almost goes back to taking it too seriously. What are your objectives when you play?
Sure. Then Phasia asked a really good question. Does pro play incentivize gatekeeping? I think it does.
I think it does too.
I absolutely think it does. Because esports is growing. There's more games that are coming out that's qualified for esports. And they want to alienate those who are not at pro level. And so I think that's why there are some games like Overwatch that are so strict with their ranking system. Like they want to filter out all the best players because they want to know who's worthy or who's qualified to be on an esports team. Because I know in Overwatch, they'll hit the leaderboards. They're going to look at the top 500 leaderboards and they're going to say, oh, who's this guy? Oh, he's number one right now. He's the number one Mercy. Let's see what he's got. They'll go and they'll, reach out to him, watch him play, and so forth. And they're just going to go down the list. So absolutely, I think pro play incentivizes gatekeeping. Absolutely. But, that's on a level where we're never going to experience it. You know what I mean? I'm not even close to something like that. I'm never going to experience something like that. But yes, I do think pro play incentivizes gatekeeping. Absolutely.
It also gives like unrealistic expectations of what a good player should look like and perform like, I feel like too.
Right.
Because you can watch like, Bolo and all these like, bomb ass people and it gives you like a standard. But what's interesting is, do we do that with like football? Like if you're going to go play like pick-up football, which is kind of what we do when we go play like, a quick match in Siege. It's a pickup game of basketball or whatever. Do we do that same sort of like, oh, well, you're nowhere near a Jordan, so you should go fuck yourself and kill yourself, I mean...
Well, I think a lot of us look up to them and we try to play like them. We try to get ourselves as close to that level as possible, although, I mean, the chances of achieving that is very, very slim unless you're super duper dedicated for many, many years. I think a lot of it comes from natural raw talent. I mean, otherwise, I think there is a level of gatekeeping in sports.
I feel like anytime you add a monetary incentive, you're going to invite that sort of mentality in.
Right.
Whether that be gaming, whether that be sports, even look at, jobs and what their compensation package is. When you start offering a higher monetary incentive, you're going to see more aggressive gatekeeping.
Right. Yeah, I definitely think so.
I wonder if the difference in pickup basketball games is that there's not an automated stat tracker where when you show up to the court, they're like, well, let's see your free throw percentages. Let's see your 3-point shot percentages. Let's see your win-loss ratio. Like,
Well,
maybe it's the fact that we can so readily, because on Siege, I can look up anyone's stats. And I'm
Right.
sure you can in other games too, but I can just, oh, this person's at my party. Let me Google you real quick. Oh,
Right.
dude, you know, you're a silver 5 with a 0.3 KD.
So
They do it differently though, in sports. They do it differently. Like you'll play the actual pickup game. Like if you just show up to a pickup game, yeah, they're gonna, yeah, come on and play. But if you suck, yeah, they're gonna sub you right out.
right, but that's where you've already proved that you suck.
Right.
That's not maybe you had a couple of bad games, so your stats are low.
Do you really suck though, or you just don't meet their expectations?
Little column A, little column B.
Potato. I mean, I guess it depends on what their expectations are. What,
I mean,
what you define as sucking.
So
Right.
so even aside from, you know, competitive or monetary incentive, have you experienced where you had to prove your credentials to a social group or a subculture? Because and I mean, I have personal experiences that I can tie back into this.
Sure.
But I find it interesting. You know, we're talking about gatekeeping, and you know, so my partner is a gamer, and there's a weird divide with a lot of gatekeeping about female gamers.
I actually want to have a whole episode on that and have a female gamer as like a guest, because
Yeah, man.
Does Kyla want to come on? Does Kyla want to come on?
I mean, she might be able to.
We could do that, and also its list. I know a female gamer that plays Siege that would be more than happy to come on too.
I mean,
That'd be great.
are you talking about right now?
No.
A separate episode, but no, it's brutal,
No,
because I played the few
absolutely.
females, and it's hell that they go through.
So
Right.
so it's, but I mean, I can't speak on her behalf. But you know, there's a lot of time there's a write-off, like it's just some girl, and you know, it's like, oh, so you're a gamer. What do you play? Do you play Mario Kart?
Animal Crossing.
Right. And the thing, but here's the other thing is, you know, what qualifies you as a gamer? You know, you're like, oh, you're not a gamer because you play Animal Crossing. You're not a gamer because you play Sims. Right. It's a video game. And
Yeah.
that's the thing is, you know, even if you look at something like, you know, Mario Kart per se, dude, they have full-on comps for Mario Kart.
Or you're not a
And at
true
the end of the
gamer if
day-
you're not on PC.
Yeah. If you're not PC Master Race,
I
with ya.
think if you dedicate any of your time to any video game, you're a gamer.
Unless it's mobile gaming.
We can all agree on that, right?
all
I think
agree
we
on
can all agree that mobile.
If you're a mobile gamer, sorry, you're not.
We can
But
all
no,
agree on that.
they are actually porting games over to mobile, like
Oh,
PUBG is on
they've ruined some of my all-time favorite games by porting them to mobile.
So now that's a gray area. Would you not consider that gaming? Like they're playing PUBG on mobile.
Okay, so one of my first RPGs that really got me into RPGs in general was Secret of Mana back on Super Nintendo. Which is,
Good one.
if you never checked it out, do. But find an emulation of the Super Nintendo version, because what happened was they ported it to mobile and ruined what was a phenomenal game, right?
Yeah.
And then
We're not condoning piracy, by the way.
no,
We're
we're not.
condoning piracy. You could find legitimate emulators online somewhere that you can buy.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, you're good.
But what happened was they ported it to mobile and destroyed it. And then more recently, I know that I was on the PlayStation Store, and I was, again, the partner said, "Hey, that game you talked about before, Secret of Mana, is coming out on PlayStation 4." Immediately, I had to go to the store and look, and I was like, "Oh wow, it's got really poor reviews. What's going on?" This was a landmark game during my youth, and it turned out they had just ported the mobile version of it to PlayStation rather than port the SNES
I heard
version.
about it.
Yeah,
I heard about it
such a disappointment
because it looked like a mobile game.
That's some shit.
Yeah, it was like the I think the ratio is also very similar to like a mobile game too, and the UI was like, this looks a little funny. Turns out it was a mobile port.
But as far as like social groups, and this is really dumb, but I remember when I was in high school, my group of friends, we were like the punk rock outcast, kind of like big Liberty Spikes, combat boots. And if you weren't punk enough, it's like you can go fuck right off and get out. You know what I mean? So like there are like certain, I feel like subcultures that do that too, besides gaming.
Yeah,
So,
even when I got older, it was like that too.
Even within gaming, I've experienced it as a full-grown adult. So, I went to MagFest. I'd never been. I'm passionate about video games. I've been playing since I was 5. So I figured I'd go, and I got there, and because I didn't have a certain aesthetic, people were kind of raising an eyebrow to me and asking me questions, more or less looking for my nerd credentials. Like, so you're a gamer. What do you play? Call of Duty? And it was kind of like, really? Like, ooh. I paid to get in here the same as you did. Why do I need to give you my qualifications to be a part of something?
Right.
When I'm just coming here because this is something I appreciate.
What about you reeks a Call of Duty player also? I'm wondering. What do you
like? I don't either.
That might not be a direct quote.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying.
I got you.
Do you play a certain cliche game, right?
Right. Really, that's kind of where that was headed at. But it was, it's like, oh well, this is what I play. I'm really into the lore aspect of it. I've been following it for a really long time. This is what I played as a child, and I shouldn't have to give that sort of backstory.
Right.
Just to have a conversation with somebody. But that's a real thing, and I almost wonder if that's not so much an elite thing. Like, that's not people being an elitist? Is that possibly them just not wanting to make themselves vulnerable? Are you inviting in a stranger who could possibly make you feel bad?
Someone going there just to like people watch and make fun of all the nerds or something?
Right.
Yeah.
Right, I see. Yeah, I remember dating this one girl, and it was actually our first date. She wanted me to drop her off at her friend's apartment. Because she wanted to. They were all going out to DC that night, so we drive to Arlington, and she asked me if I want to go, and I was like, yeah, sure. And so I go upstairs. We go into the apartment, and those are her friends, stuff like that. And one of the guys introduces himself, and he goes, sits back down, and someone offers me a drink, and I was like, oh no, thank you. And he comes back up, and he comes over to shake my hand, and he goes, oh, we're all engineers. What do you do? And I was like, I'm a web developer. He was like, oh, okay. And at that point, I was just like, I don't know if I'm gonna get along with this group. I'm not gonna pass judgment so fast. Maybe he's trying to start a conversation. I don't know. But at that point, I just wasn't feeling it, So I just excused myself, and I was just like, hey, I'm feeling a little tired. I'll call you tomorrow or something like that. And that was that. But I told her what happened. She was like, really? And like, why would he say that to you? I was like, I don't know. I mean, at the time, I was also like, what, 30 years old or something like that, And it was just kind of like, whatever, not a big deal. But there were a couple times where I experienced that, where I just didn't. It wasn't direct gatekeeping, like, no, you don't belong here, you don't fit. It was more. It's very, very subtle. It was very subtle. Very, very passive aggressive way of saying, like, this is what we do, or this is what we do for a living. What do you do? And just kind of like huff at it afterwards. Very subtle.
I mean, that makes me reflect on how I was as a teenager, which was a giant steaming turd. In that I was that guy with music.
Same.
You know, it was a loaded question. I was like, so what do you listen to? And immediately, based on what you said, I might not call you out to your face and be ugly about it, but I was judging you. And I'm sure that my attitude was very obvious. And, you know, in hindsight, that's not my proudest moment, but
Well,
you know, I recognize that, you know, like you said, it might not have been direct. It very well could have been a passive thing, but you know, I think we're all guilty of it at one point or another, regardless of whether it's more aggressive or passive.
And I think awareness is like that first step, right? Like having that introspection and awareness. You know, yeah, because we're all gonna do that, and I think some of that may be like ingrained in us, of the us against them sort of ancient survival. You know, like outsiders could be danger. I think that's just like deeply ingrained in us, and it's now that it's not necessary anymore in life. It's like permeated into other aspects, like of our identity, of like, oh, I'm a gamer.
So you're saying that that's something that's genetic and it is ingrained in us, right?
I do.
No, and my question, I'm very curious about this. When do you feel that crosses the line into xenophobia?
I think xenophobia very well could have been an ancient, like, I'm not, okay, so I mean, first say, xenophobia is wrong and it's bad, and this is not in any way anyone who's going to clip this and be like, oh, Dontoni's a racist. In no way am I condoning this, but I do think back in, like, you know, ancient times, I do think there's a lot of our fears that we have today that were survival skills in the past. Like, why are we afraid of the dark? Well, back in caveman days, we can't see in the dark. Shit out there could kill you. And it's like an old ancient fear that's just stuck with us. I think xenophobia is the same for some people, where maybe back in the day, outsiders could pose a threat to your, you know, tribe. So you should be afraid of them because they're different and you don't know them.
It is a survival instinct that has been amplified and left unchecked.
Maybe, or like a maladaptive survival instinct, because it's not. We don't need it anymore. Clearly.
By the way, please don't take that as me trying to bait you.
No. But I know
that was a legitimate question.
No. You're good, but I know how people are, and I know how clips out of context can look really bad. So that's why I wanted to buffer it with that, because I just know how that shit can go.
I think you're right, though, when it comes to moments of self-reflection. And I think it's important that, you know, like, for me, as I said, like, I listen to you guys or have followed this podcast while I'm working by myself because I like something in the background. I like noise of some kind. And, you know, it's thought-provoking. And a lot of times when I'm working by myself, it'll be moments where I'll challenge my own thoughts. I will challenge what I consider to be my standards. What are my standard practices? And then, you know, being able to take a step back and go, wow, that's not okay. Like, if you can take a look at it without any feeling involved and be completely objective, it's surprising how often you will want to change your own thoughts. And that completely goes into, you know, as I said with, you know, earlier, you know, you sometimes you need to pay it forward and take that risk because maybe somebody in the past has done that for you. You know, reevaluate.
And one thing that we talked about that I want to circle back to briefly, and I think everyone should like take this down. It's okay not to know something and to admit that. Like, I've had in sessions where a client has asked me a question and I've been like, to be honest with you, I don't have the slightest idea, but I'll find out. Like, that's an acceptable response. Is I don't know, but I will find out.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, that's huge. I mean, as I can say, you know, working for a lot of different companies, is that, you know, if you're trying to get a job, you know, Color and I touched on this earlier. Don't bullshit your resume. Just be a straight shooter. Tell them flat out, hey, this is not within my skill set.
Right.
But as Dontoni said, I'll learn. I don't have the answer. I don't have that skill set, but I have the ability, given the opportunity, that I will find out and I will learn.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Wow, we are up to 9:15. Can you believe that?
That's wild.
We talked for an hour and 15 minutes, just nonstop. That's great, though.
It's a problem I have.
No, that's
it works well in this format, though. It works really well for that.
Yeah, it works really well.
So I know we haven't really taken many questions from chat. There also hasn't been many posted because I think we had a good conversation. Does anyone have any questions or comments that they want to throw in that we can address real quick? I don't want to rush us off, but I do have a TV show that is premiering at 9 o'clock that I do want to go watch.
No, absolutely.
That DVR, man. Come on.
Actually, we do have a DVR, and it'll probably be on demand. It'll probably be on demand afterwards too, but it's okay.
Yeah. So what do we learn from all of this? Right? Kind of like, to be honest.
So I'm a little more stuck up about certain things and a little elitist on in some areas.
But there's a difference between having standards and gatekeeping, and I would say that the difference is the presentation of it, and how you present your standards.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with having standards because you find standards in all facets of your life.
Mm-hmm.
The issue comes into how you inflict those on the rest of the world.
Right. And while we know we can't, control the behavior of others, something that we can do as people on the receiving end is to understand it's like, hey, they have expectations on their end. They just don't know how to communicate that with us properly. And it's not so much us, it's more so on them. Is that a fair assessment? Is that fair to say?
Assessment. I think if anything, it should encourage all of us to reflect on how we communicate, what our expectations are.
Exactly. So.
And I think defining terms also, because like one thing that you asked Color and we kind of didn't really answer and skirted aside was like, if you're playing a game and someone is like, no, you're trash, you're a piece of shit, go kill yourself, get out of here. Mm-hmm. Like, how do you handle that? And I think a lot of that is defining terms. Like, what does it mean to be trash, a piece, all those sort of things. And then when you really go through it, I think you'll see I'm not a piece of trash or, a piece of shit. Like, yeah, I screwed up round number 3 and I missed my shot. Doesn't mean I suck at the game or I deserve to go kill myself. You know what I mean? Like, defining and labeling terms helps with a lot of that.
Ask them for a metric. How am I trash?
There you go.
Right.
Of course, if they're telling you to go kill yourself and calling you trash, they'll probably respond with like, "Okay, noob, fuck off," or whatever. Or they're probably not going to give you that.
Or if you don't even want to type in chat, this is the mindset you have to be in. They're just having a bad day. Maybe they had a slew of defeats earlier and they really wanted to win this one. And the reason we get angry is because we don't know how to communicate. We don't know how to kind of express our anger in a way where it's not directed towards other people.
Right.
They don't know how to cope with their anger. They don't know how to deal with their anger, so they take it out on someone else. They see someone who's obviously not playing the way they want to play it, because I've experienced toxicity with some of my less skilled friends, and they were toxic towards other people. And it's just like, well, in reality, you're actually not doing this correctly. So it's not always on the other person. Maybe it's you. Maybe it's them. So it's
important to try to nurture that in people that you see gatekeeping. I mean, I guess that would depend on your rapport with that person.
I don't think it's your job to do anything. I think it's your job to, and now I'm not saying you have to sit there and endure it, but what I think, if you care enough about that person, you should let that person know. But if that's the kind of behavior you're going to see, then I just simply wouldn't want to play with that person.
Right.
If they're just an acquaintance, someone that I just met online, I was like, I'm not going to play with you again. Why would I go through that? Why would I have to experience a backlash of something that you said to them?
Right. And that's the other thing. I mean, that's kind of a moment of shame for you, or, maybe after you've been witness to somebody doing that to another person, you don't want to be associated with that. You don't want to be associated with putting somebody down to that level. Like you said, go kill yourself, you trash.
Right.
That's not the group that I want to run with.
Yeah.
Even if the group that I play with is a little subpar, we're not telling people that treating people like that. Like, that's just uncalled for.
Yeah, so it's to do what's right for you. I mean, if you feel as if you should step in, then step in, but it's not your responsibility to tell other people how to behave. You know what I mean? It's like that's not your job. I'm not going to sit here and argue with some kid on the other team, or most of the time argue with some kid on the same team, because he's calling me trash. I was like, okay, this game is over, right?
Right.
Because now he's angry with me because I'm not playing the way he wants to play, which is incorrect, by the way, and he's just going to be toxic the entire game. So that's my response to that. It's just like I've already accepted that we're probably not going to win this game. We may or may not, but I'm going to have to play with this guy till the end of duration, and I'm probably not going to see him again, or I'm going to wait a couple minutes before I queue up again. But I'm not going to sit here and bicker and argue with him because of something that he said to me. I'm just going to whatever. He's probably having a bad day. Let him have his bad day. Let him continue his losing streak, because the longer he talks like that, the more he talks like that, and he treats people that way, he's not going to win games. That's how he's going to lose games over and over again.
Well,
so it's no skin off my back.
Half of your win is just your mentality, right? And if you're not right, if you have that much angst tied up in your playing, it's not going to help you.
Yeah,
it's going to be detrimental by all means. Ooh, you got a
so that's my response.
I do. We do have a question. Throwing me under the bus a bit with this question, which is awesome. So that's my wife, by the way, which is why
hi, Dontoni's wife.
Which is why she's throwing me under the bus. Yeah. So the question is, does everyone think people are cut from different cloths? She does not. I do, which is why I term that I can be elitist sometimes.
So you think people are not cut from different cloths, or they are cut from different cloths?
I think some people are. I do. I think that, and I'm not trying to say that I am like the finest of cloth, but I do think that like everyone has limitations. Some people have a lot less than others.
Yeah, I think so too.
And I've known some people that are, I don't want to say they're lesser because they have the same rights and to be here as anyone else does, but they're either pieces of shit. They're like, not a benefit to anyone. Things like that is what she's.
Still have to be created.
So personally, I'm burlap, but but as far as being, I'm not sure I agree with the analogy. I tend to view it as everybody's dealt a different hand.
That's probably a better way to word it.
And the reason that I say that is because people can have similar hands, but they play them differently.
Right.
And I think the key to keeping yourself on an even keel is sometimes you got to reshuffle, and you got to redeal. And just because maybe you do have the same hand that somebody else had earlier in the game, but you play it different. And the reality is that all you can do is to play your hand to the best of your ability and recognize that other people are not going to play their hand the same as you played.
Right. I agree with that.
Yeah, I was about to throw so you're two people dealt the same hand.
I don't think two people can be dealt the exact same hand.
No, they really can't.
I don't think two people's lives can be exactly the same. But I get where you're coming from, though. It is
similar. It was wrong for me to have said exact same hand, but I was using that simply to explain that it's really how people handle their hand.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Because people have similar emotions, but how they choose to handle them, that's very individual.
Being lazy. Oh, I'm sorry. I just read something from chat. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, it's okay. I was just going to say, and I know one thing, and I think on this podcast, we're always about being authentic and honest. So I know one thing in life as I've gotten older too, I've really tried to work on is judgmental elitism. That is definitely something that has been an issue for me, for sure.
So I'll admit, I've been an elitist at certain points, but I understand and empathize where you're coming from as far as being judgmental as you get older, because I catch myself doing it frequently.
Yeah,
and it'll be completely undeserved. I'll go through the grocery store and glance over and see that somebody has something in their cart, and I'm judging them immediately. And that's, and if I catch myself doing it, it's kind of what are you doing? That is completely uncalled for. Their groceries are none of your business.
Yeah. Well, and it's no mystery to anyone who's listened to me enough to know that, as I said, I think the majority of people are stupid and, and ignorant and, not good people. I'm not a humanist. I don't believe that everyone is good by nature. I think the majority of people are selfish and pieces of crap. to be honest. I genuinely think that the human race is like a stain on everything we touch.
So earlier you touched on that necessarily like possibly self-preservation tying into xenophobia. So we touched on that, but you just said that people in general are selfish. Are they selfish, or is it just self-preservation?
That is a good question.
Sorry, these are the types of things.
No, these are good. That's a great question.
Yeah.
I do think, and it may be different across cultures too. I do think our culture is a lot more selfish, individualistic than.
Oh, Americans are wretched.
Yeah, than like other cultures.
But do you think that's a society that we shaped for ourselves, or do you think people are inherently like that?
No, we
absolutely. I think we did that to ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we did that to ourselves. So I mean, is it let's say fair to say like being selfish is actually a bad thing? It's kind of like your sense of survival, right? Like you kind of do things for yourself.
Everything's good in moderation.
That is true. I think that's a universally accepted truth.
Self-preservation is understandable, but to what extent? When it is to the detriment of another person?
Yeah.
So then Phaedra brought up two questions. How does lazy play into dealt different hand analogy? I think people who are lazy have no sense of urgency.
So
that's just me.
Lazy with a different hand, you just fold. You don't play your hand.
Right.
Too lazy to play the game, so you fold.
Too lazy to play the game. Yeah. Maybe you're just assuming it's a bluff, so you're just gonna fold.
Yeah.
Or maybe you have dug yourself in. Maybe you bullshitted your way into that job and realize that you don't have the skill set. So rather than learn it, you just bow out and quit.
Or you're pessimistic to a point where you don't feel as if the hand that you're dealt's gonna get you anywhere.
Like learned helplessness.
Yeah.
And that's a thing. You see that in animals. Like they did studies back when you could do these sort of studies. Now PETA would burn your building down. But they did a study at one point where there was like a kennel with a little like divider. One half of the floor was electrified. The other half wasn't. They had the room divided. They put the dog on the electric side and they would shock the dog. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Over time, they would eventually lower the divider and the dog wouldn't even move to the other side because it was learned helplessness. The dog just learned, well, I'm fucked. I'm just going to lay here and just be shocked for hours at a time. And I think people can fall into that same, like you were saying, Color, about the, like, so pessimistic, my hand, it's not even worth trying to play anymore. I'm just going to fold.
But is that pessimism, or is that you have gotten yourself into a rut? It's become habitual that, you've habitually seen things not go well. So,
or were you told that you weren't going to succeed? Or you had too many people tell you otherwise? Or too many people fed ideas into your head like you're not going to do it? Because naturally, if I don't know, like if I was a little toddler running around and I didn't understand the concept of a hot frying pan and I touch it,
and I would heard that's why your parents let you near the stove.
I learned a very valuable lesson there, right? Don't touch hot frying pans.
Natural consequences.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you're, I don't think inherently as a kid, that frying pan is going to hurt you. You're going to have to experience it yourself, or you're going to have to be taught that. So for people who are lazy, I don't think they're inherently lazy. I think all kids are like, fairly energetic. You know what I mean? They're little bundles of energy. They want to go out and do shit and be hyper. It's that I think it's inherent. I think it's just. I think it's learned behavior,
like life experiences.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's because I think people are lazy because there's just not enough encouragement. Because we're kind of negative by nature because that's just how our brain is, right?
But is laziness a learned behavior?
I think
something that is nurtured into you.
Actually, you know what? No, I don't think so. I don't think it's nurtured into you. I don't think anybody encouraged you to be lazy.
Well, I think the word would be conditioned.
Okay.
Could it be conditioned? Could laziness be like a conditioned behavior, like response?
I feel
like someone who their whole life had everything done for them,
right?
Where
like
Yeah,
Right.
so they don't have to ever do anything. So they learned, like, well, shit'll work itself out if I just sit here.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, like making your bed in the morning, right? Some people don't make their bed in the morning. That could be viewed as
I
lazy.
don't make my bed.
I don't get the point. You're going right back into there. Like, I don't understand. My wife and I have this discussion all the time because she values a crisp, clean, the physical feeling of a crisp, clean
So do I.
bed.
Well, it's not crisp, but it's made, right?
And my ass is just like, well, I'm going to be back in there in 12 hours from now, so why the fuck does it doesn't matter?
So then Phaedra brought up another comment, because altruism doesn't exist. That's interesting. I believe altruism exists. I believe I'm altruistic. Now, it also depends on what you mean by altruistic. Like, if I do something for you, does that mean I'm trying to gain something equal in return or gain something at all?
So by definition, it would be doing something selfless that doesn't benefit you. I think a lot of people argue it can't exist because the behavior, like you give a homeless person $5. It feels good, right? Because you're like, I helped this person. So you actually did gain something by the selfless act. You got like an ego boost.
I would also argue that it does not exist because even if it is not something that is tangible, you are still receiving something. You feel good about yourself.
And then the other argument I've heard is like the parent lifting up a car to save their kid. That also, now they're still preserving their DNA past the lineage, so this still benefits them. So, like, some philosophers would argue that altruism is made up and it can't exist.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that.
If that's the definition, then no, I don't believe altruism exists.
Let me Google it. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. It's just doing something that's selfless, right? The belief or practice of, dude, this whole time I've been like repositioning because this chair is not super comfortable.
I'm sweating profusely and my pants are sticking to me in an unpleasant manner.
You got the swamp butt.
Not quite.
Not quite.
But it's close.
No swamp butt for me.
The belief in or practice of disinterested and selfless concern for the well-being of others.
That's altruism?
So it's not that you have to get something in return.
To be altruistic, you're doing it just for the well-being of others. Yeah.
Okay.
But
so
the
in
thing
that
is
case, altruism does exist, I think.
I disagree, because even though you are not gaining anything from it, you are still feeling good.
But you're not gaining anything in return. Those feelings that you're feeling that are good are for you.
But is that not a gain?
But that's still a gain, wouldn't it be?
So it is a gain.
It's positive reinforcement.
So the definition of being altruistic means you have to gain something from it?
So it says here, altruism refers to a behavior that benefits another individual at a cost to oneself. For example, giving your lunch away is altruistic because it helps someone who's hungry, but at the cost of you being hungry yourself.
But you feel good about doing it.
But it doesn't mention anything about gain.
Well, and then it says here, research suggests that the reason humans do that is because it's emotionally rewarding.
So
I guess paradoxically, it can't be altruistic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I was a volunteer EMT, I mean, I just did that shit for fun. There were some days where I didn't necessarily feel good about it, but I still dedicated my time. There's some days I didn't want to be there. I didn't really get any emotional gain from it.
You didn't feel good that you were a savior, that you were helping people and you were like saving others?
I mean, after the second month, I just showed up to show up because I felt like it was the right thing to do.
You got great pictures for Snapchat.
Unless
there you go.
It was all for the Snapchat follows.
Gotta get that content.
I don't think Snapchat was around at that time. I don't think it's existed yet. But no, I don't. There were certain days where I volunteered and I didn't get any gain out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I did.
But here's a question for you, though. On the days when you didn't get anything out of it, were they active days? Did you still have multiple calls that you went on?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was in your county, actually.
Oh.
Yeah. My station was maybe less than 2 minutes from your house.
Oh, you know what?
You know what station I'm talking about? That's station 15. That's the one that I volunteered at. I was either at 15 or 25.
It's like by the post office?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the station that I was at.
Okay. Huh.
But I used to volunteer at homeless shelters. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not trying to toot my own horn or anything, but there you go. I gained useful skills that I indeed did.
Oh. man.
Now that may not have been like a conscious decision, right? But like maybe on, I don't know. I do think philosophers probably could go back and forth on this topic as far as there may not be a universal. I also don't believe there's universal truth, so there may not really be like the universal truth answer to this question.
Right, right.
And I know philosophers also debate that whether there is a, can we know the universal truth on things or not. I know that's another philosophical debate.
Emotional well-being though, but that's not emotional though.
No, that'd be tangible.
Yeah, exactly. Skill sets are tangible because that in turn is monetary payout potentially. You know, but you gave somebody your lunch and now you're hungry, but you feel good about it. You're not getting paid for that.
Right.
Yeah, fuck cons.
I love that, Beja. You got me there. You got me there. If tangible is looped into the definition of altruism, then yeah, I don't believe anybody is altruistic. I'm just going by definition.
Well, I'm looking at what is not specifically addressed.
Right.
That's how I'm looking at it, and it's not really addressing, emotional gratification. Like you just feel good about it, and it's not looping in that you are potentially learning a skill set. Although, would it still be considered gain if it is a subconscious gain?
That's a good question.
Does subconscious actually exist?
Yes.
Yes. It's something that you're not doing. It's something that you would do without actively knowing. I don't know.
It is, yeah. So, like, I mean,
I'm not sure how to define that.
Yeah, we're getting a little too deep here, and
I could go on. I could go on about the subconscious, but we don't need to. But yeah, like the consensus is yes. Now, is it as like to the point that like Sigmund Freud described it? Maybe, maybe not. But like the consensus in the field is that we do have drives and motivations that we aren't fully aware of.
Sure.
And we do things that we're not fully aware of, like a lot of the defense mechanisms and things.
Sure.
Like there are things that we do that
like farting in your sleep.
Well, sure. I don't know if that counts, but yeah, we do. I do that. No, but yeah, like we have a whole discussion on that. But yeah, I do think the subconscious does exist. I think there's a lot more to our mind than we're aware of.
Right. Yeah, everything that happens in our body.
Shit, REM sleep alone is fascinating. Just for what your brain is doing.
Mm-hmm. That is true. No, our mind is a scary place.
Yeah.
We all just want to have sex with our mothers and kill our fathers.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
That is also a very dark and scary place.
Freud is funny.
Yeah. But I think that's it for tonight. I think we're
on that note, we're gonna
hour and 40 minutes in. Yeah, I think this was a really good one. Thanks for coming on, man. Really appreciate it.
I'm so humbled and flattered to be here. I get to hear you guys almost daily. Well, I've run through all of your content, so now I don't hear more. But I was stoked to be here. It was good talking to you guys.
Yeah, it was good to dig into the mind of Lucky too. So it's good.
And I'd love to have you back sometime too, because I think we're wanting to have guests be more of a regular thing. Because in the past it was like if we happened to think of someone, we'd throw them on. But I think we're trying to get it be, if not weekly, bi-weekly at least, that we have an actual guest on. So maybe the three of us can brainstorm some other ideas, in the future.
Yeah,
sure. I can absolutely give Kylo a shout out.
Yeah,
Kylo Fem can absolutely give you insight into females within gaming.
I think that'd be great. And I'm gonna reach out to one of my friends.
Yeah, maybe we can have them both on.
Yeah.
So
you could have 2 ladies.
Oh man. We'll be like the Brady Bunch in here eventually, having all the different screens going.
Yeah, I get to be Alice. I'm going to be the maid.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming
on, man.
And thanks everyone for watching. This will be uploaded on YouTube within 24 hours because Twitch has a boycott thingy that I have to wait for. So Or not a boycott, you know, there's like you have to wait, as an affiliate, you have to wait 24 hours before posting the content on another.
Guideline thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So it'll be up on YouTube in 24 hours. Let me see if there's someone we can raid. I don't know if there's anyone I know that's on.
Hey, you guys.
We raiding? Maybe. Oh, nope, shiggity. Oh, yeah, we got, yeah, okay, so we're gonna raid the fiance of the chick that I want to have on here.
Okay.
So that's what we're gonna do.
Let's do it.
What is this? I always forget how to do this. Raid.
Yeah, /raid username, space username.
All right, thanks everyone. Stick around for some Canadians playing Siege.